Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video, and I tell you what, we have got a good one for you guys today. Last night at St James's Park, Newcastle United held a We Are United event, which included guests such as Howe, Shola Ramiobi, Becky Langley, Peter Silverstone, Dan Ashworth, Darren Eales, and they went through a whole host of topics, including ticketing, stadium expansion, memberships, training grounds, and we are going to go through all of that in today's video. The event itself was hosted at St James's Park, but they had a whole number of online guests, which I was one of the lucky few to watch the over 2-hour event. This video, I'm hoping, will not last 2 hours, but it could well still be a long one. So grab yourself a cup of tea, a drink of water, a beer, and we will go through the whole lot together. But first, go ahead and hit subscribe. We are about 10 subscribers away from 45,000, so if you guys can help me out on that one, it would be much appreciated, and then maybe we can make our start towards that big 50k mark as well. But yes, as I say, the event was on at St James's Park last night. A whole host of Newcastle personnel there to go through a number of topics, and as I say, I did make a whole host of notes, so when I keep looking down like this, that is what I am looking at. The first person to come on and speak was Darren Eales himself. He brought in a bit of an introduction to the night. He spoke a lot about supporter engagement and wanting to have the fans involved as much as possible. That was the real purpose of this event, and we'll come on to it shortly. They also spoke about bringing forward a fan advisory board, which is basically a way for fans just like you and me to apply to be a part of this board and be in direct contact with the club over a whole host of matters. And that was a lot of what the event came down to, was the club wanting to ask the fans questions as to what they think on certain topics. And I'll be totally honest, he very much gave the impression that nothing was off limits. He even off the cuff made a remark on the possibility of not just expanding St James's Park, but via the viability study of stadium expansion. What would you do if you were offered the chance to? Well, actually, if we gave you this brand new stadium over here, how would you react to it? So there was a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and as I say, we will get into all of that in the video. They even did some like QR quiz scanning where, as a part of the night, you could vote on stuff. So I'll let you know what those questions were and how I answered them as well. But he went on to say that they want to run the club sustainably. They want to be a top 6, top 4 club recurringly, but want to run things right off the pitch as well. He briefly mentioned tickets at this point, saying they want to do the best they can. They went on to say he started the formal process for a viability study of the stadium. So really this was like a broad introduction of a lot of different things. There's going to be a survey handed out, basically done to help them study what is possible for stadium expansion, what they can do architecturally, but also in line with what people want as well. There's no point of them going in, hoying up a whole load of extra stands and seats and everyone turning around and going, well, that's great, but we actually wanted this, this, and this as well. If they're going to do it, if they're going to make such a big change to St James's Park, they should be trying to cover all bases, not just going with the first thing that comes to mind and then going, oh, actually, we possibly could have done with something else in there as well. He went on to say that he's extremely proud of what the fans are doing and what the club have achieved so far, but said there is still plenty more to do. He actually spoke a little bit at this point as well on kind of trying to broaden the cast of Newcastle United, making it a bit more, international fans, but said that he does not want to forget, the bread and butter, which is, the fans local to the northeast, but also the long-term supporters as well. There's no doubt there will be a lot of new fans coming on board as Newcastle continue to spread that reach, but wants to make sure that he's given, the long-term fans as much support and notice as he's given everybody else. So that was a great introduction from Darren Eales, as I say, to get up on stage and kind of give a real flavour of what was to come throughout the rest of the night. Next up, Shola Ramiobi, Becky Langley and Eddie Howe came onto the stage, and effectively they went through a whole host of questions, some from the crowd within St James's Park, some coming from the people online. Question one was, how has Eddie Howe found it bringing players into the Northeast with the sometimes, I would say people online saying, we've heard it all the times before. What was it, Gabby Abonlaho? Would you rather go to Brentford or would you rather go to Newcastle? And Eddie Howe was asked that. Becky Langley was asked the same on bringing players in. Eddie Howe said he's had no problem at all. He talked about how he made a very big effort himself to move his whole family up to the Northeast very, very early on. Didn't want to be commuting, wanted to be committed to the cause, and he said how he's had a fantastic time. And as I say, this is a 2-hour event, and I'm trying to get through it as much as I can for you guys without taking forever. He was asked, how's he finding the Champions League? And Eddie Howe was said, obviously it's a huge privilege to be a part of the Champions League. It's a very big moment for him. It's a very big moment for the players, but in very much Eddie Howe fashion, said he's trying to say it's just like any other game, trying to keep level heads on the players. And, I think that's the answer Eddie Howe would give generally, wouldn't he? He's always someone to be very careful with what he says. He did say that it's a very busy period, and he did admit to the fact that he thinks that the squad have suffered, particularly with injuries because of it being such a busy period, feeling like there is sometimes drop-offs in the end of games because it's been so busy and because the players are being worked so hard. But he said that it's all part of a learning process, and it's always going to have to be, it's the first time for a lot of people in the whole team, the coaching staff, the players, and it's something that you learn and you build on. And obviously we still have more games to go, and hopefully a few more after that, if not Europa League, depending on how we're getting on. Shola did chime in at this point and spoke a little bit about his time in the Champions League and spoke about similarities he's seen between Eddie Howe and the likes of Bobby Robson that he played under, and just what a great place it is to be right now. Eddie was asked what his favourite moment was since the takeover, and he said it was qualifying for the Champions League, understandably. Shola was asked a little bit about what his job is. He said that his job is really building for the future. Obviously, the club is trying to build on the pitch right now, but he said that the club wants to invest in players for the future. It wants to invest in the club's future, and a part of that is through loan deals, and that is what Shola is mostly involved with, dealing with players, but also dealing with the clubs that the players are going to, trying to make sure the clubs that these players are going to are the right fit for the player, and the right fit, interestingly, the right fit for Eddie Howe's play style. He doesn't want to send them off to a team that lumps the ball along and does whatever, or even trying to have players involved so when they do come back, Eddie Howe can be right, how can we fit him in, and it's not a whole different process of learning. So that was very interesting. Obviously we know we've got Minty over in Feyenoord, who's absolutely smashing it out the park at the minute. Shola said that it's not always the case that you can have these situations where players just fit in well or indeed play the same football as Eddie Howe does, but if that is the case, that we are able to be honest with the player and go, look, we're going to try and do it like this, do it like that, or even with the club and say, look, can we try and help him fit in this way? So some quite interesting stuff from Shola there. Eddie Howe spent some time bigging up his backroom staff. He said it wasn't just all about him, it is all about his team as well. He was asked if he had any plans to bring any new staff in. He said that right now he's happy where he is, but he's always happy to learn, and he's never against looking to make changes or do things differently if he thinks it will benefit him and the club. He was asked if he had a bit of a off the cuff, there were some funny ones as well. Asked if there was any rituals or superstitions that he had. He actually said that for himself he doesn't, but he said that Graham Jones, obviously one of the coaching staff at the club, apparently gets a new pair of trainers before every game. So there you go. Big up Graham. He said if you ever see Graham, according to Eddie Howe, he wears apparently trainers that aren't very fitting or apparently for the younger, the youth, as opposed to Graham himself. So if you see Graham wearing a fun pair of trainers, that's why. It sounds like he puts them on, and if we win, he keeps the trainers and keeps wearing them until we lose or draw or whatever, and then gets a new pair of trainers. So I'd love to see the pair he was wearing last season. They must have been manky by the end of it because of how many great games we had in a row. Shola and Becky said that they didn't have any real superstitions. Shola said that he'll often find himself going, well, we won last week, so I'll have this again for breakfast, or I'll do that again as well. And that was them through. So yeah, it was a really good conversation. It was great to hear a little bit from Eddie Howe on how he's finding things at the moment, being very honest around kind of player injuries and finding things tough with the amount of games. But obviously that we're working very hard, and that he's enjoying himself up in the northeast as well. So yeah, if you want to let me know your thoughts on any of those three down below in the comments, please do. So the next person to come on was Sarah Metcalf, who is one of the people creating the fan advisory board within Newcastle United. I'm sure it's in St James's Park as well. FAB for short, fan advisory board. We'll all remember back in November 2022. I didn't remember exactly when it was, but she has informed me, and I do remember it happening. And it was when all Premier League teams agreed to the fan engagement standard. You might remember this because it spooked a few people, because as part of this fan engagement standard, it included things like the club cannot change things without... Well, basically what it was you can't change things without permission from the fans. But it was like, could they change the badge? Could they change the name? And everyone's going, well, hang on. We don't want the name changed from Newcastle United. Or really, what it was putting down kind of bit of regulation around it, so that the club couldn't just go, well, actually, let's just change it, and nobody has a choice. It's not saying that it will happen. It's just saying that if it did, somebody has a say in it, and that's kind of where it builds onto. As I say, it's all about fan engagement. It's all about letting fans have a say. That was part of the questions that we'll come to a little bit later on, which was about memberships, was about ticketing mostly. So the club have agreed that they will do a yearly report, basically on what Newcastle United have delivered in terms of standards to the fans, to kind of be held accountable for some of these meetings. Right, we discussed this, we discussed that, and we discussed that. All right, well, where did it go? You know, has that ever been spoken about again? Well, as I say, they are now hoping to do a yearly report to say, well, yeah, we did talk about this, and this is what we delivered on. Yes, we did talk about this, and this is what we delivered on. They did say that they are opening up invitations for people to apply. Now, they want the board to be around, I think, 9 positions on the board. I think 4 of which will be fan groups or a representative from a fan group. Now, obviously, things like someone from the Trust was there, I believe, last night. I think someone from War Flags was there last night. But then it is open up for the other 5 to be open application for anybody to be involved. If I'm not mistaken, the applications will go live as of tomorrow. That's Friday, the day after recording this video. So if you are interested in being involved in the board, keep an eye out on the Newcastle website. I think they said that 3 will be totally open applications. The other 2 positions will be based on whether you have a season ticket or don't. So again, it's a point of view from either. And they said they really want to keep it as open as possible. I think some people, if they have a membership or don't have a membership, and then it was age as well. They wanted someone under the age of 21. So they want to have a real broad spectrum of people, so they can have as much input from different people as possible. I think that could well be something that interests a lot of people. If you would like to be involved in the fan advisory board to Newcastle United's basically board of engagement with the club, working with Darren Eales and trying to represent the fans in the best way you can. Next up, I think this is the one that probably took up the biggest amount of time, and it's understandable why, because there was a whole host of questions and there was some very interesting people on stage. It was Peter Silverstone, Dan Ashworth and Darren Eales' turn to take the stage and answer a few more questions. So we'll get onto them now. First up, shock horror. The first question was about FFP. The question was asked, what is going on with FFP? It feels like at times we are being held at ransom compared to other Premier League clubs. It seems to be something that affects Newcastle United far more than it does other clubs, and is there a reason why? Dan Ashworth was the man to answer this question, and as I say, you know, this section was over an hour, so I will try and keep it as brief and as quick and easy as possible to get through everything for you guys. Dan Ashworth said that the rules are consistent, and the rules are consistent across the board for everyone. What he did also say, however, was the penalties as to what you will, what the charges are for being under, over, left or right. It weren't consistent, and nobody really quite knew what the answers were. In fairness, I think this question was likely asked before Everton saw their 10-point deduction, and it remains to be seen as to what will happen to Man City and Chelsea next, because as I say, really up till the Everton one, really there hasn't been a lot of charges, or we haven't really seen a lot of stuff coming out the other end of that. So if that's the case, then where do we stand with it? Well, now actually, well, hang on, Everton are getting a 10-point deduction. We know that there could well be something happening with Chelsea and Man City as well. Newcastle need to make sure they stay at the right side of that line, and Dan Ashworth said that they're doing their best to make sure they do so. The next question was on ballots. It was basically put to them that for some members have had 0% success in the ballot, whereas some members have had as much as 50% or maybe even 100% chance in the ballot of getting home tickets. Is there a way to increase the chances of people who have had no tickets so far? Someone even said they would prefer to switch back to the old ways, which was basically the logins and the ability to first come, first serve over the ballot. Darren Eales, and I have to say, I am speaking off the cuff on some of these as well. This is not quoted from their direct mouths. But Darren Eales basically said along the lines of the fact the reason they changed it away from that first come, first serve was from the previous feedback that people didn't like it. He did go on to, and that's the and he went on to say that for certain people, such as teachers, factory workers, people who are in work at that 10 a.m. But Darren Eales said that's why they changed it. He said he wouldn't be against changing it back, but again, it's trying to get the feedback from the fans. What do people actually want? What will suit best? He said if there is a way to try and make it fairer, he even pretty much made the joke. He went, even if it comes down to alphabetical, you know, A to B go to the first game, C to D go to the next game, you know, if that's what it comes to, because that is decided by the fans, that is the fairest way to do it, then he's open as anyone to going down that route. And it's just finding that way that does suit people. Peter Silverstone, I think they were asked about members next, and Peter Silverstone kind of stepped forward and kind of touched on that previous question as well as the membership option. He said, and you know, this is the top and bottom of it, to be honest. I did circle this in a big blue pen on my bit of paper, because he said that they are committed to getting it right. They want to get it right. They want to make sure that people are happy with how things are in the memberships, in the season tickets, in everything that regards Newcastle United. But he did put simply enough, there isn't enough tickets. There isn't enough tickets to suit everyone. And because of that, someone will always get the rough side of it. Yeah, there is always going to be a time where someone applies for a ticket and somebody else doesn't get it. No matter how you do it to make it the fairest way possible, someone will always not get a ticket. And he said because of that, it makes it really tough. I would go down the middle on that and say that there's definitely things they could be doing to get it better. But I will also agree that he's not wrong. There is always going to be someone who gets the hard end of the bargain, someone who doesn't get a ticket. He said, I think, what was it? 10 people of all of the members apparently have had every ballot so far. So there is a percentage of people who have 100%, and I've no doubt there's probably there will be another percentage of people who have had nothing. So because of that, you think there must be a way to try and even the keel a little bit on that one. Totally random would mean that some are more lucky than others. So they are looking at it. They are trying to do the best they can for members where they can. The next, well, they kind of moved on to memberships a little bit more. One of the questions actually was on memberships, so let's just throw this one in here. It was, what member benefits are best? There was a whole host of answers. I didn't write them all down, but the answers received from the room were 28% voted for more priority access to home tickets. The second most answered was 20% asked for away ticket ballots. And third place was 17% asked for resale opportunities on tickets. So basically, the members in the room, or the people in the room, pretty much voted along the lines of better access to tickets through memberships. But Peter Silverstone actually said that 20% of people who have a membership actually aren't haven't applied for a single ticket. So it's interesting because we do associate memberships with ticketing. But he said that, you know, after being in Dortmund and seeing so much of what was going on over there, he spoke about the fact that their fan memberships have around 180,000. He didn't comment on how many Newcastle have, but he did say we have less than half of that. So it would still suggest it'll be quite a high number of Newcastle members. But he said that Dortmund, you know, have a whole host of membership options, magazines every month, and this and that. And he said we aren't even touching, you know, we're not even touching close to where Newcastle want to be with the memberships. A lot of it's around ticketing, and I think that's because people want to try and get a ticket. But back to what he said originally, until changes come in with stadium and everything else that I'll come on to in a second, not everyone can have a ticket. So they're trying to work out what's best for that one. Keep your ear to the wall to see what more comes out on memberships. But I think it will be improved heavily, and then it won't just be all about tickets going forward. There will be a host of other things as well. Which did actually lead on to a question about season ticket waiting lists, and as to whether the club are looking to bring a season ticket waiting list. To be fair, I don't know whether this question wasn't really answered, and I presume that's because they don't want to say yes and they don't want to say no. This is me talking now. I don't know that the club necessarily wants a season ticket waiting list. The question came in, and it was from someone who had, I think, been a season ticket for a holder for a very long time, was one of the people who chose to release their season ticket because of Mike Ashley and because of everything that had gone on, which I think a lot of people did, and now feel on the outside, feel like because they did put their season ticket away because of Mike Ashley, now can't get back in and are feeling maybe left out or less part of the club because they can't get in. And if they could at least put their name on a season ticket waiting list, that would ensure that the hope is that they could one day have a season ticket again. They gave a whole host of answers to this, but effectively did not answer the question as to whether there would be one or not. Darren Eales went more down the route of how can we have fans more involved. He did, and I think they are doing. That they're working really hard to have more fans involved. They spoke about the fan zone, having that available on match days to basically, in theory, you know, increase the capacity of St James's Park by 3,000. Because if you are in that fan zone over the road, you'll hear the roars, you'll hear the cheers, you'll hear the boos, and you'll be literally just outside watching it on a giant screen. So you're not in there. It's as close as you'll probably get to having a ticket. And that is increasing, you know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I don't know how big it's going to be, but it's going to increase the capacity in some form. He spoke about the involvement in other ways, being able to use that fan zone on non-match days, have people down there to take part in events like this one, take parts in other events with the club. It's all about the involvement, and I think that's the thing. Going back to what Peter Silverstone said beforehand, having tickets for everyone is very tough, if not possibly impossible. You know, there's always going to be more people who want a ticket than there is tickets available, and because of that, they are working to try and bring other things forward to make people feel involved. He said that, he did for the ticket the season ticket waiting list, what he said was, is it something people want? If so, we will look at it. So again, he's kind of throwing stuff back at the fans and saying, look, this is why we're setting this up. You know, that was one question from one person. I've no doubt there'll be loads of you guys who might put in the comments, yes, Rob, I want the season ticket waiting list. And if that's the case, I think the question will be asked at some time. And it'll be part of, you know, if you feel strongly on that, maybe that's something you should put your name forward for in terms of the board to try and be involved in that. So yeah, that was a question that was of. Dan Ashworth was asked a little bit on what his role is at the club. Could he clear up a little bit more of exactly what he does on a day-to-day? He said that Newcastle have a whole host of different teams inside of St James's Park and the club in general. You know, for medical, training, business, commercial. I think he said there was 9 different teams within Newcastle United right now. He said that when he started his role, I think it was 16 years ago, he said, obviously before joining Newcastle United, he said that his role was explained to him in a way, it's someone who can wear a tracksuit or a suit. There was a better analogy than I've just butchered there. I think it was someone who can wear a suit in a tracksuit, or someone who wears a tracksuit can... Anyway, it was someone who can kind of jump between the two. He can be involved in a more Eddie Howe side of things sense, where he does know about football. He can be involved in those talks. But then on the other side, he can put his suit on the next day and also take part in transfers and being involved in a whole host of other things like that. So it was quite interesting to hear from him. He said he does deal with players, he does deal with signings. It is something that he's heavily involved in, which we kind of knew about already. They spoke about looking at resellers, and not resellers from the club, but people who are buying tickets and putting them on reseller websites. We've all seen the photos, or at least a lot of us have seen the photos on social media of tickets being sold through third party, and this isn't Newcastle fans who say, you know, a face value ticket, although it's harder now because they did come out of digital ticketing, so we'll come on that as well. Not people who are just trying to sell it to a mate, not someone who's just trying to pass it on to somebody else. This is people who are selling them at extortionate prices online. The question was, what are the club doing about this? Are we looking at this? Should the club not be buying them themselves, finding out who it is, and then banning them from the stadium? Well, Peter Silverstone said, we do. This is something that Newcastle are looking at and are trying to deal with. The club do buy tickets to try and catch people out on these third-party seller lists. He actually said the Premier League themselves are looking at this themselves, that the Premier League centrally are trying to pull something together to try and stop people from doing this. They also have bot software, so like AI software, to try and stop scammers, to try and pick up on people who are recurringly selling on tickets, or even, I think he mentioned people who are selling tickets to be delivered 24 hours before the game, and then these tickets aren't ever arriving, because it is people also scamming online as well. They are trying to put an end to that. And because it was kind of on that idea of tickets, they also talk about digital ticketing. He said that the rollout he said although some people weren't happy with digital ticketing, he said that he felt the rollout of it was very good. He said that the suppliers of the rollout ticketing said that Newcastle were one of the best to have done it. So there you go. Pat on the back for us for getting the digital ticketing right. But he did say the point of digital ticketing is to stop this as well, or to try and help stop this, because it's in people's names, because it's not just a faceless ticket. It means that people who are trying to sell tickets on or digitally send tickets to people, there is a trail of that. It's not just a ticket that goes out to someone who's bought it online and has no name or number to it. It is something that is digital and has a bit more of a footprint on it to try and stop it. So yes, plenty on digital ticketing. He says that things are moving on the pitch very quickly. Things like ticketing is something they're trying to catch up on, and there is issues that they are trying to improve on as well. Next up, training facilities. This was a good one. Dan Ashworth was asked on the training facilities of Newcastle, specifically as to whether he can divulge any information on where the new state-of-the-art training facility will be. He did say that at the moment they have spent a lot of money on the Benton training ground. He almost, I think he was possibly trying to keep his cards slightly close to his chest. Yes, we are looking for a brand new state-of-the-art training ground. I think they are, personally. I think that it is something they are looking to do because it would go hand in hand with a lot of what Newcastle are doing right now. But he said that they are considering it. It is something they are always open to. I think that was the general theme of the entire thing, to be honest, was that they are very open to listening to fans, but also very open within the club to doing what they think is the best they can do. He said they currently have 3 sites at the moment. It's not just the men's, it's also the women's, it's also the academy as well. And he did say that the club have spent millions on the current training ground at Benton. They are working to constantly improve what they have while also keeping an open eye on what they can also do. He said that the training ground previously was not up. Well, this is me speaking now, really, as much as it is Dan Ashworth. It's a mix of both. The training ground basically wasn't up to scratch, was it? That's something that we all know. He said that they have spent millions bringing it up to Premier League quality. He said that if we have the opportunity, we will take it in terms of moving somewhere else. But for now, they are working on where we are. And what we currently have with an eye on possibilities. So it sounds like it's possibly something that is on the list, maybe not at the top of the list. I think the reason they've made the changes to the current training ground, because that's where we are, that's what we can do right now. These are things that we can do here and now. Things like a new training ground, as much as I think it is on the list, when we are talking about all of this other stuff, I think there's stuff that's possibly ahead of the priority when they've, have improved the current training ground, somewhere that the players can go right now, be happy with and enjoy. Although I think that a new training ground will come, and Dan Ashworth isn't going to really tell us these locations, one of which has been scouted is kind of, what is it, the Great Park or up at the top, North Gosforth kind of way, where the Marriott is in the golf, Gosforth Park. Yeah, I don't know why my head went so blank there. I've been talking for too long. So I think there is options there, but right now he says that they are working on what they have. They were asked. Peter Silverstone did go a little bit into kind of Adidas in the new training kits. It sounds like he has seen them. He said that he is very excited. He did go back to the comparison of Dortmund as well, talking a little bit about the fact that. Dropped my bit of paper on the floor. Dortmund themselves, when you were looking around their club shop, for example, they had Dortmund toasters, and he said they had a Dortmund shovel and spade. So he kind of went on to say that as part of bringing Adidas in fact, went a little bit into the fact that Newcastle are bringing the retail side back to the club, something that had previously been pushed out to providers is coming in-house again, gives them a far bigger opportunity to do things as they want. And for all those people who had issues with the likes of Castor misprints or sending it to the wrong place or getting a Rangers top instead of a Newcastle one, it sounds like they're taking back a lot more control on that. I think it will allow us to be more in charge of the range and supply of what we provide to our fans, a better experience in terms of purchasing or even just being in the club shop in general. He said there is an amazing range of stuff with Adidas to come. I would not be surprised to not just see the 3 kits home, away and third, but also a range of maybe retro stuff to come back as well. So I am very excited for that. I made a video yesterday about the Adidas stuff, so I won't go on with that one too long, but he did go through it and he did kind of speak a little bit about what they're hoping to bring very, very soon back to the club. Next up, where are we now? They did go on to talk about ticket pricing. The question was put forward as we are bring in more international fans? Is there a way to try and keep ticket pricing down? We saw a little bit of this on the fact that Chelsea are charging £38 for the Carabao Cup game. You think back to when people were charging a tenner, £5 for kids, £10 for adults, and now Chelsea are charging £38. It is a quarter-final, it is a cup, but I do think that there are lines somewhere, and I think that one is probably over the line. So you can understand why the question was asked. Darren Eales said that they need to try and balance the two. He kind of mentioned this back at the very, very start, where he said that the club need to expand and internationally because that's how we bring more money into the club. But at the same time, we don't want to outprice our current fans. We don't want to outprice the local area. And at the end of the day, it's a support-as sport. We saw, and this is me talking really, this is what we saw in kind of COVID, where there was no fans. You know, the football didn't seem quite as good. You know, without fans, without fan engagement, without the roar of a crowd, it isn't the same. So we have to be careful how we do it. And then that was basically what Darren Eales said. He said that there needs to be a balance. We need to go internationally because that's what brings the money in, but they need to be careful and they need to protect the core of the fan base, was what he said. So yeah, that was very, very interesting to hear a little bit more on that. And this is kind of where it brings us to, I guess, the finale of the thing, was stadium. Stadium expansion, safe standing, and what the club are looking to do with the ground. So he said on the possibility of expanding St James's Park that there is something they are very much looking into. Really, as per start of this video and as per the start of the event itself, he did say they are in the midst of doing a viability study. We've started the formal process of the study to basically learn what is truly possible at St James's Park. There's no point of coming out and going, yes, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and then find out, well, actually, we can't do this and we can't do that. He said that as part of that, we want to know what the fans want. What do the fans want to see? Do they want more seats? Do they want it to be a brand spanking new stadium? He even said, you know, he said, and he did have to quickly say, well, not that we're going to do that. But he even said, you know, if we offered you up, by the way, here's this brand new stadium at this different location, would you be interested in it? You know, I don't think it's, I can't see it happening. Mandy and Murdoch have already said they've got no plans to move the stadium. I personally think that the fact that St James's Park is city centre is at the core of it. But you could flip it a little bit and say, look, we have got St James's Park. Well, what if, and this actually brings in a couple of reports or rumours on the side, that Newcastle have spoken with the person who developed the Spurs Stadium. Now, you'll remember that the Spurs Stadium is on the same site as the previous stadium, or if not on the same site, slightly next to. So, if I put it to you, look, it'll be in the same location as St James's Park, which is, as I say, the prime for me, but we will knock it down. We'll knock it down. What we're going to do is we're going to use... In this magical world, the council have given us permission to use Eales Park. And we're going to knock it down, and we're going to build a stadium next to St James's Park, or as part of, but it's going to be brand new. It's going to be a brand spanking new stadium, state-of-the-art, billions of pounds spent on it. You know, is that something that you'd like? It'll be in the same location. It won't be the same stadium, but it'll be this instead. And I think that's what Darren Eales was trying to get to. As I say, he said we've got top people at work on this. One of the reported people is the guy who did the Spurs Stadium. It's almost like it's saying, we can do this. At the minute, there's kind of no use Darren Eales coming out going, well, what do you want? And the fans going, we want the East Stand. And he did say as well, you know, everybody's an amateur architect at the minute. You know, I think I'm one of them as well. Yeah, let's build over the East Stand. Let's do the big glass structure. Let's build over the Gallagher into the... And, you know, I think that is amateur architect. That isn't thinking too outside the box, because a lot of people are talking about that right now. But he's saying, like, we've all got ideas, but until we actually know what's possible, we don't know what is truly possible. And that was kind of what he was getting to in this one. The idea of the study will bring forward options, and if the options are, we move completely over here, we look to take down the current St James's Park but build on the same area, which again, all of these come with issues as well, because if you move somewhere else, you're losing city centre. I don't want that. if we do knock down and try and build on top of, where are we going to go for? Where's the stadium going to be for the next 3, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? How long does it take to build a stadium? You know, so there's so much to go with all of these things, and that's basically what Darren Eales was saying. We need to find out what we can and can't do, and rounded it up a little bit with, you know, as well as, because that's all seating. That was all talking about how big we can make it. He also wanted to talk about, you know, facilities. You know, what else can we want more of? What will make for the best atmosphere in St James's Park, what will be for the best fan experience. Which brings us on to atmosphere. We'll do this all in one, because the other question I haven't mentioned yet was of what was discussed today. What would you like to discuss next time in the next fan engagement meeting? Of the whole of the answers, the number 1 was ballots. People want to talk about ballots more. Number 2 was away ticketing, and number 3 was improved home atmosphere, which led on to really what we're going to talk about now, which is questions on safe standing and potentially increasing the amount of safe standing, maybe even bringing in a singing area to St James's Park. We saw what it was like in Dortmund. We saw what the yellow wall was like. Could Newcastle bring in something like that in the Gallagher, have an entire area of dedicated singing? It was interesting, because if you asked me that question, I would go, yeah, well, sure. Why would we not want more safe standing? Let's make more noise. Let's do it the way we can. But it was quite interesting how they answered their question. They didn't just go, yeah, okay, that sounds like great. I would say they were more on the cautious side with their answers. It was more like, yes, it's something we can look at, and it's something that we could, because I would say that's probably one of the things that they could do without too compared to building a new stadium. I thought this was one of the ones that we go, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do it. They said yes, but we don't want to spoil what we currently have. They actually said, you know, we are really good. And Darren Eales even mentioned, he was like, even if it comes to what songs should be played before the game. So they have their ear against the wall. It's not just us, you know, whinging on or whatever about some of these minor things. You know, should we have a different song on at the start of the game? Darren Eales was like, look, we are listening to all of that, and it is something that we are aware of and we want to try and get right, which was the point of this whole thing. They spoke about the fact that things are done differently in Europe, and kind of going to having PSG coming here with the drum, or Dortmund with the drum, and going over there and watching how they do things differently. He said that, you know, it is heavily spoken about, and that Newcastle is spoken about amongst Newcastle players, but also players from other teams, that the atmosphere at St James's Park, and we know this, it's spoken about all the time. Every time we're on telly, every pundit gives Newcastle such a high regard for atmosphere. And still, 13% of the people in the room last night wanted to talk about improving home atmosphere. So it is funny, because I would have gone, yeah, I'm on the same board. I'm going, yeah, okay, let's talk about it. But they were going, well, you know what? We are pretty good, and there is a potential that actually trying to change too much, and maybe, as I said, trying to be like Dortmund, that having a drum, you know, it's not really what is kind of done in our league or in this country, and could trying to change too much potentially have an adverse effect on what we are currently doing. So they are working with supporters in all terms to try and improve what is currently in the stadium. Dan Ashworth went on to say, you do not underestimate how good the Newcastle fans are as the 12th man. And as I say, players are very much, you know, commenting on the fact that Newcastle fans are doing a great job as it is. And it's not something that we should, you know, think that is maybe not at the top of the list. I agree, you know, because sometimes it can feel a little bit flat at the start of games, you know, when we haven't scored or we are losing. But Dan Ashworth's given us the pat on the back for that one, and maybe we should take it and just try and keep pushing on and, you know, take it in our stride. So that is the end of the video. That is, you know what, I actually talked for long. Even I talked for longer than I thought I was going to. That must be a good 45 minutes we've talked through there. And as I say, I think, okay, maybe it was over 2 hours, because it's taken me just as not that much less longer than it took them. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. That was the entire run through, all of the minutes, as it were, of the We Are United event at St James's Park last night. If you have watched this entire time and you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It was a great event. It was great to be a part of. I'd love to be a part of more going forward. And as I've said, if it's something of interest to you to be a part of the fab God, my voice is well and truly finished. The fan advisory board, Newcastle are set to post about that this week, so keep your eyes peeled. It is said to be an interview process, and they do want locals, internationals. They want everyone. They want everyone to apply. They want a full range of fans to have different, I guess, thoughts on the whole thing. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. I will be at all of the games coming up as always. Previews, pre-match chats, post-match chats, and any updates on anything like tickets, training grounds, stadium expansions. So keep your eyes open for any new videos. And if you subscribe, you're notified of all of them. Alright guys, thanks for watching this one. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy your week, and I'll catch you later.